Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Bjorn, and today we are going to be looking at my improved assassin or infiltrator. It's very similar and akin to a faceless assassin, I realize, and if that's a playstyle you're looking to go for, this is definitely for you. I'd recommend one thing though: don't play exactly a faceless assassin. Speak with your dungeon master, see if there's an organization that you could fit into that exists within their world. That way you can integrate into their setting a little bit easier, and that way you can also claim this character more as yourself and not, be hardlined into that death cult kind of crazy shenanigans I get going on there. But this is all up to you. So as we can see here, this is what I've ended off with: an Assassin Rogue of level 12, a College of Whispers Bard level 6, and a Grave Domain Cleric of level 2. Because of this, there's going to be some stark multi-classing requirements. The Rogue is a Dexterity of 13, the Bard is a Charisma of 13, and the Cleric is a Wisdom of 13. For your stat priorities, I would recommend having your Dexterity and your Charisma as your highest stats. Best of luck with your rolls here. As for your Wisdom, I would just meet the multi-classing requirements of your Wisdom. It doesn't matter so much. Now, as for the race of choice here, I've decided to go with the Changeling. If you can't go with the Changeling, I'll say right now to look at the human variant, even though you don't gain dark vision or anything with that. Immediately with that feat, I would recommend taking the Actor feat. It's not going to be quite like the Changeling, but it's going to allow you to gain an additional charisma point, but also the ability to gain advantage on your deception checks and your performance checks. So it's very similar to how the Changeling works, but you don't gain that extra benefit of what the Changeling can do here. So of course, with this, we do gain a +2 to our charisma and a +1 to our dexterity or intelligence. I'd recommend dexterity in this case. The main feature of this, of course, is the change appearance. As an action, we get to transform our appearance to whatever the hell we want, really, or we can revert our appearance to our natural form. So there's a lot to this. I'm not going to read it all. We'll be here all day. We do gain Changeling Instincts. I've decided to go with Persuasion and Insight here. We gain this Unsettling Visage. Essentially, we can impose a disadvantage on an attack roll. This is kind of a last resorts kind of thing. I wouldn't recommend using this all too often. You don't want to give away the fact that you're Changeling to many things. Now, we also gain this Divergent Persona. Now, this is a very interesting thing. I really like this. So we get to choose a different persona in which we have this other life that we pose as, in essence. We also get to take a tool choice that fits that persona. I've decided to go with the Alchemist Supplies here. It's extremely beneficial for this character, not just as the roleplay of them being an assassin, so they need potions for themselves, antidotes and whatnot, but now we can also supply potions to our group and antidotes to our group. This is extremely beneficial, and it works into our disguises and our infiltrating and getting into places. Now, as for languages, this is also going to fit more into your persona. I would suggest picking languages that suit your character's persona. So pick like say Elvish if you plan on taking an Elvish persona, or an Undercommon with maybe a Drow or a Duragar, something along those lines. I will mention, when you're working on your personas, realize that you don't have dark vision. If you're trying to, lie to the party and deceive the party that you're not a changeling, make sure you pick a persona of a creature that also doesn't have dark vision. So for my own personas, I'm going to be taking on, humans more often than not. There's so many different options you can go with here. Write up a backstory for yourself, and then write up a backstory for your false identity with this divergent persona. Like, there's so much role-playing potential here. And speaking of backstories, I would recommend taking a look at the Charlatan. Now, this is going to give us our Deception, Sleight of Hand, a Forgery kit, which is amazing, but also it's going to give us another false identity, essentially another divergent persona. Now, with this, I've decided to go with the Cook's Utensils. Now, it may not make too much sense to go with the Cook's Utensils immediately, but the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that everyone eats. You could possibly get hired into some noble court to cook a bountiful feast. Maybe you've made a name with this identity of yours, and now you're being hired around the continent or wherever this place is being held, and this could be a means for you to infiltrate somewhere. Cook's Utensils, I feel, is very, very useful for this assassination master infiltrator type of build here. Now, coming over here into the class kind of like leveling guide here, I'm going to say you're going to want to start off with Rogue. The Rogue is going to give you 4 proficiencies and 2 expertise right off the bat. That's amazing. This character focuses on having those proficiencies, the expertise. So once you start off with the Rogue, I'd recommend taking that Rogue up to level 5. It's going to give you a couple of things. You're going to be able to gain your archetype with the Assassination, so you're going to gain the Assassinate ability. So you're going to be able to, do all the Assassinate. You're going to gain an ASI, and you're also going to gain Uncanny Dodge. After that, I would recommend possibly either, you could go, it depends on what you need. You could either go Bard or Cleric. If you're looking for a pure, insane raw damage output, I would go with the Grave Domain Cleric, because that's only 2 levels, and you gain a channel divinity called Path to the Grave, which is an insane amount of damage that we'll go over later. And as for if you want more utility, more proficiencies, more expertise, I'd recommend taking a look at Bard. You'll be gaining a lot more spells this way. Very, very useful. So both, it really depends on what you feel is needed. And I mean, you don't even need to stop at Rogue 5. You could go up to Rogue 12. That's still very, very viable. And then you can diverge into Bard or Cleric. It's a very fluid build. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into it and pretend we're going, say, Rogue 1 to 12, and then into Bard, and then into Cleric. As for your proficiencies here, I'd recommend Performance, Stealth, Investigation, and Intimidation. Performance will come in handy quite a bit. There's many cases in which I have been asked to make a performance check over a deception check, which there is some, vagueness between when are you performing something versus when are you actually deceiving someone. So there's cases for the Dungeon Master calling for performance, and you don't want to be caught with your dick in the wind not having performance, I think, early on at least. Stealth, very obvious reasons. Investigation is going to help you find information. For infiltrating places, you're going to be able to better impersonate people if you find like some sort of personal information on them, or some dialogue that them and someone else had. Now, for your first expertise, I'd recommend going with Deception and Insight. Again, Insight, staying alive, not being able to deduce people lying or telling the truth. Deception, just being able to deceive people. Pretty straightforward. Now, we do gain Sneak Attack, of course, with this build, because we're going up to a Rogue 12. That is a 66 at the end of Rogue 12 that we're going to be able to do with our Sneak Attack. So, we of course gain Thieves' Cant right away, and then second level we gain Cunning Action, very useful. With the Roguish archetype, we gain Assassinate. So, whenever we surprise something that hasn't taken a turn yet in combat, it's going to be an automatic crit if you can set up shit correctly, which, being a master, infiltrator, assassin, I'm sure you're probably a bit more meticulous. You're going to want to set up this shit properly, so it's quite likely that you'll be able to get this off quite a lot. We also gain some bonus proficiencies here. We do gain the Disguise Kit and the Poisoner's Kit. The Poisoner's Kit's probably going to come in more use as opposed to the Disguise Kit. At 4th level, we do gain our first ASI. I've decided to go with Athlete here. It's very useful for climbing, running, jumping. To quickly go over other ASIs, Mobile pairs pretty well with this character. We more climbing distance. When we make a melee attack, we don't provoke opportunity of attack, so Mobile is very useful. As for another ASI, I'd recommend taking a look at Skilled, because this is going to give us our Acrobatics and Athletics, and as well it's going to give us Nature. Nature, I felt, is very useful because we have both a Poisoner's Kit and an Alchemist Kit. I want to not necessarily invest all my gold into buying my resources. I want to be able to make nature checks and figure out, like, these are herbs or mushrooms, I don't fucking know, that you can use in order to make this certain concoction of whatever and make an extremely deadly poison with this. Uncanny Dodge at 5th level. We do gain another expertise at 6th level Rogue. I've decided to go with Sleight of Hand and Thieves' Tools here. Evasion at 7th level. Another ASI at 8th. Infiltration expertise. This is pretty neat. So this is the point in which we might be able to start crafting other divergent personas for ourselves, because not only are we just looking like this person, will have legitimate, quote unquote, legitimate paperwork putting us in the place of wherever we're looking to be. So this is invaluable for us to fit into many places, and some Bard abilities down the lines will help this out quite a lot. 10th level, again, another ASI, and then 11th level, we gain my most favorite ability in all of this game, and that is Reliable Talent. Anything that's below a 9, we treat that as a 10. It's between this and Action Surge that I feel are probably the most powerful abilities in all of this game. And of course, a 12th level ASI, I've decided to go with Dexterity. Get your Dexterity and Charisma up as high as you can, or meet those multi-classing requirements. Coming down to Bard, we do gain a proficiency right at first level. I've decided to go with Perception. Pick an instrument of choice. You can fit this instrument into another Divergent persona if you would like. We gain Bardic Inspiration, so this can help benefit the group. But most importantly, coming down to the second level, we gain Jack of all trades. So with this, we can add half our proficiency bonus, rounded down, to any ability checks we make that don't include our proficiency bonus. It doesn't just mean like those skills, like maybe you don't have animal handling, for example, and now we have half our proficiency. This adds it to those tools that we don't have. So for the smith's tools, for all these other tools, we can have our half our proficiency just there. And the way you could play that off as in game is maybe you're as a smith, you could be having just an off day, and like maybe you're trying to have to like prove yourself as a smith, and you know you're working your way around the bench, you're maybe fumbling a bit, but you know they get the idea that you understand what you're doing, and you're probably just having a bad day. And that's how you can brush it off and be like, I apologize, and blah 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 blah, and deceive your way out of that situation. And at third level, we get to choose our Bardic College. I went with the College of Whispers. We gain this ability called Words of Terror. Essentially, we get to scare the living shit and intimidate somebody for an hour straight and get them to do what we want them to do, really. And as well, at the end of that, they don't even know that it happened. But then the more important thing I felt with this was that we gain the Psychic Blades ability. So we get to use our Bardic Inspiration dice to deal extra 2d6 psychic damage at third level. And then we are going to begin this up to a 3d6 since we are taking this Bard up to 6th level. So as well, we do gain some more expertise. I've decided to go with Stealth and Investigation here, more fitting into that role. And another ASI I've invested in more into Charisma here. I want to be able to pass those checks with ease. 5th level, we gain Font of Inspiration. We get to regain those Bardic Inspiration dice on a short or a long rest now. And then coming down to 6th level, we gain Counter Charm. Very useful if used correctly. And then, of course, we gain the Mantle of Whispers. Now this, once a humanoid dies within 30 feet of us, we can magically capture its shadow using a reaction. We retain that shadow until we finish a long rest, or we use it. Essentially, with this, we can take on a better persona of that person that we just killed, because this allows us to have certain information about them that we otherwise maybe didn't have. So we can better deceive people and pass ourselves off as that individual. It puts a shadowy, it's not a shadowy, it's just an illusion around you to make yourself look like that person. But I mean, once you have this illusion, this Mantle of Whispers on you, you don't have to continue to have that. You can shapeshift yourself to actually look like how that person was. Like, the illusion is still there, but I mean, it's flat with technically your skin at that point. So it's an additional useful tool that I felt, you know, it was just extremely useful, and I wanted to have it. Coming down to the Cleric, we get to choose our Divine Domain. At first level, obviously we're going with the Grave Domain. We gain the Eyes of the Grave. This is pretty neat. We get to be able to see undead and all this other little things. This is selectively useful. As well, we do gain the Circle of Mortality, pardon me. So if we ever do need to heal somebody and they're down, we're going to be able to either use Spare the Dying at a 30-foot range, which is pretty useful not only for your group members, but maybe you didn't intend to, you didn't mean to do a lethal kill. So all of a sudden you spare the dying that person from a range, and then you can interrogate them later. That's a very useful feat for it, but also if you do need to, get one of your group members, you can spare the dying or use a healing ability, a low-level healing spell, and just get them up and get them going again. So this is pretty useful. And then most importantly, second level, we gain our Channel Divinity, Path to the Grave. I mentioned this earlier. As an action, we can choose a creature we can see within 30 feet, cursing it until the end of our next turn. The next time you or an ally it's a cursed creature to the attack, has vulnerability to all attacks damage until the curse ends. This pairs off extremely well if you assassinate. So with your assassinate, what you could do, for example, here is, let's say we're using a short sword because they're finesse and light weapon. So a short sword is a d6 damage. We're going to use our Psychic Blades feature. It's going to be a 3d6 for us, and then our sneak attack is a 66. So 66 plus 3d6 plus 1d6, that's 10d6 damage right there. So let's assume we've rolled max damage because we live in a perfect world. So that's 60 damage from our dice, and with our assassinate, we go ahead and double those dice, but because on the previous turn, we go ahead and we've used our Path to the Grave. We add our modifier onto that crit from 120. So let's assume you have a dexterity modifier plus 5, 125 times 2, 250 damage in one hit. I'll put out there that like CR-17 Death Knight has like 198 HP or something close to that. You could one-shot a CR-17 creature. Like, that is insane. That 250 damage is nuts. Now, quickly to go over some spells, because you are going to have no dark vision, I recommend with the Bard you take Dancing Lights, Mage Hand Prestidigitation, and focus on utility and buff spells for yourself. Comprehend languages, gathering information. Detect magic, you gather information. Identify, gathering information. Detect thoughts, gathering information. Invisibility, that's a stealth buff. You gain yourself advantage on stealth checks. See invisibility, you gather information by seeing if there's anybody invisible around. Detect magic, dispel magic, you're dispelling magical trap on something. Sending, communicating between you and your party or you and your organization. Speak with dead, you killed somebody by accident. Hey, hi, ho, all of a sudden, guess what? You impersonate yourself as that person's wife. You ask them the questions that way. All of a sudden, you get the information. You gather information. So very, very useful. And then with the Grave Domain, similar thing. Guidance, of course, because you give yourself guidance on all your checks. Why the hell not? Mending is very useful because maybe you've accidentally destroyed something coming in when you didn't intend to, so all of a sudden you can mend that the broken window that you had to break to get in here, and you were never there in the first place. Thaumaturgy, you can make a sound down a corridor, distract some guards, get through. I recommend Detect Evil and Good, gathering information. False Life is an always prepared spell, I believe. Protection from evil and good, very, very useful. Sanctuary, especially if you're playing a more neutral assassin. I plan on playing a more neutral assassin. Once you assassinate somebody, you need to get out. You cast Sanctuary on yourself, and you hightail it out of there. Those things probably aren't going to make their wisdom saving throw. A few things might make it through, but this will help you survive, as well as Shield of Faith. And finally, coming over here, it's pretty straightforward for gear. You know, get a decent, at least one decent dagger. Dagger venoms are good. The absolute required, I would say required thing for this character is a glamored studded leather. Well, as a changeling, you can shapeshift yourself to look like anybody, but your wearing stays the same. Well, with this, you're going to be able to at least give off the illusion of what you're wearing is something that person that you're trying to impersonate would look like. Of course, there's other things. I would recommend maybe a short sword of wounding. This is going to be really nice because any damage you deal with a short sword, for example, that 250 damage, if that somehow didn't kill whatever you're attacking, call for help. But also, not only that, they won't be able to heal that health. So they take a short or long rest. Of course, the other big one I would recommend, since you can't see in the night or in dark vision, you don't have dark vision, Goggles of Night, extraordinarily useful. But yeah, that was it. I'm gonna end it off here before it gets too long. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope that this maybe inspired you to make some crazy assassin type and have some fun with it. As always, have a good time. Bye bye.